start the deal finder month, which I'm excited to start. I think everyone loves finding deals, and certainly the most enjoyable part of the process, I think. And, ultimately we've got to find deals or we can't create cash flow. So without the deals, we're a bit stuck. So we're kind of going to dive into that all this month and, adding that onto the productivity stuff we've done in January. That kind of teases up to what is going to be required to find the deals. Because I think ultimately, if you dig down to the bare bones of it, there is no secret magic website formula or anything. Unfortunately, I'm afraid to tell you, unfortunately, it is just grit and hard work and volume of activity that will find you lots of deals. But hopefully we will make sure that you're doing that in the right direction. So at least your time isn't being wasted speaking to the wrong people, trying to find the wrong things, saying the wrong things, etc. So, but yeah, that being said, Branko, welcome. Leah, do you want to share your screen and bring the lease agreement up, or do you want to just talk me through the parts that you maybe want a bit of clarification on?
Yeah, I can try share my screen. I'm using my phone, so I'm not really sure. Is it just like share content at the bottom?
Yeah.
Okay.
You ping it to me if you want.
Yeah, I'll probably just best ping it to you.
If you send me on Telegram, I might be able to open it. Yeah. Or if you want to
be able to open it.
Or if you want to just read them out, read the points out that you're a bit stuck on.
Yeah. Let me just.
I think we'll all, just while he's trying to find out.
Shall I put it on? Oh,
yeah.
Sorry. I think I've got it now. 1 second.
With any agreements, what we basically always want to try and get our contract into them where we can, but not everyone will accept that, and sometimes you got to just accept that. Okay, well, I'll take whatever you're going to give me, but when you do get a contract that you haven't set, then the main things I look out for is, can I do short-term rentals in the building? I've seen time and time again where people are getting into sort of agreements, especially with estate agents, and they're on blocks of flats, and sure enough, 3 months later, they're getting told that the management companies sent the landlord a letter saying, they're not allowed to do short-term rentals and you're out. They then go back to the estate agent, and the estate agent just washes their hands of it, because that's just what estate agents do, take absolutely no responsibility. So what I would always suggest, if you do get an agreement through an estate agent, I would have it in writing, signed by the estate agent as an addendum to any contract, something along the lines of, you have verified that we can do this for the full term of the contract, and if we cannot, or we are terminated because of whatever, a block management company turning around, or the landlord kicking us out, or whatever, then you're responsible for our setup costs plus any rent due plus loss of earnings. And that might actually lose you some deals, but trust me, I've seen it time and time again where people have invested 4 or 5 grand in furniture, not counting the time and effort it's taken to set the properties up, and 3 months down the line, sometimes even less, they are getting turfed out and having to then put their furniture into storage because they haven't got another unit ready to go, and they're fighting with the estate agents. So just be mindful when you are getting stuff through estate agents. Most direct to landlords tend to accept our contract. In fact, I pretty much don't do it now unless they will accept our contract. I think I might have an advantage that the brand is a bit more developed and therefore they can easily trust it. But at the same time, the contract is fair and it protects both the landlord and ourselves. But that's one of the main things that I look for, is making sure that, even out here is the same. So, if the apartment block decide that Airbnbs can no longer, work in that apartment tower, then, can we, exit the contract and not have to pay any penalties, because there's 3 months penalties in most contracts here. So I've always got those addendums built into the contracts just to protect my financial state. And I think that's the main thing that you kind of want to look out for, because there's a lot of people who want to try and cut corners in this industry, but when you do cut corners, it's a bit like anyone cutting the process in your business. It's going to go wrong. You will get bitten. So just that's the main thing I look for. Leah, are we ready?
Yeah, I've got the contract now. I'll share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yeah. We got it now.
Can you see the contract?
Yeah.
Okay. So basically this is the guaranteed rent agreement that they've sent. So I think it says that obviously got the landlord, the tenant, and the agent. So the agents being the letting agent, and yes, we're like the manager in this sort of like contract here.
Yeah.
So I suppose I've read through it all. I need to probably like read it again, but let me just check. So I think it was 2. So 2.2 here where it says, oh no, sorry, not 2.2. I think where it says where either ourselves or the landlord want to pull out from the contract. I know on your management agreement from Kajabi, I think you've stated there 3 months. Is that right? Notice.
Yeah, I think we have it's a 12-month contract with a 3-month notice from the landlord. Some of them are 3 months notice from either party. Sometimes I throw in a 3 month from the landlord, 1 month from me. So it just depends what it is. I try to keep it quite flexible if I can. So obviously this one's saying at the expiry of the term of the appointment of the manager under this agreement shall continue for a further 5 years. So what's the initial agreement?
It's 2 years initial agreement, but I'm not kind of like getting the 3 months notice of it, because obviously it's a guaranteed rent, isn't it? So we're guaranteeing rent for 2 years. So when would be sort of apply that 3 months notice? Would it be after the initial 2-year period, or
I think what this is saying is you can't give notice any earlier than 1 month prior to the expiry of the term.
Oh, okay.
And then it will continue for a further 5 years. So I would probably want that changing to, if you've got a 3 month notice period, you would want that changing to that you can't, that you can give notice at any time leading up to the term, if you can get away with that. But if not, I would have it that you can give notice no earlier than 3 months prior to the expiry of the term. Because if you're on a 3 month notice period, I mean, this might be a one month notice period, but if you were on a 3 month notice period and you can only give it 1 month prior, that actually means you're in a 2 year, 2 month agreement, not a 2 year agreement, because it's
okay.
If that makes sense. But if you're only in a month's notice, then that's why that'll stack up there.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. Also 2.3, so it says the owner warrants that he has full power and forward center. So I guess that's hang on, is it 2.3? It was a question about the mortgage and insurance, I think, because I know obviously with short-term or Airbnb, service accommodation, it's mainly that the mortgage and the insurance side of things that the landlord will need to.
Don't worry yourself about their responsibilities. If they're not flagging it up,
okay,
it's got absolutely nothing to do with you. Just make sure you've got public liability insurance, so that if anything goes wrong with a guest whilst they're under your stay, then you are covered, and you can get that as a group cover, so you're not having to get it for every single property. And and if the landlord hasn't brought up any mortgage issues or questions or insurance issues or questions, that's not your responsibility. So I wouldn't really worry about it. That's their responsibility to sort that out. And if they get a letter through the door, the letter will be going to them, won't be coming to you. The caveat of that, again, coming back to what I said prior, which is why I always use my contract, because point number 1 and point number 2 clearly state that they must tell their mortgage company, and that they should also tell their insurance company, and therefore, there's consequences if they don't, so it just protects me, and make sure that if they don't tell them, not that, I mean, listen, I've done this in hundreds of properties now, and touch wood, never had a letter from a mortgage company. And I think the mortgage company's got more things to do than chase down landlords that are, running them as Airbnbs. I think they'll start chasing you if you're not paying your bills, but if you're paying your mortgages, I don't think they really care. But at the same time, we still need to protect ourselves just in case that changes.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
Ryan, Leah, sorry, can I just give my view on section 2.2 there on that agreement? Sorry, it's just that negotiating contracts is my bag. You've got to be careful there in the wording in terms of the expiry. So if you were to give notice any earlier than 1 month prior to the current expiry term, you're guaranteeing the rent, you would be liable to pay the rent for the rest of the time up until that 1 month prior to expiry date. So you need to ensure that there's a termination clause in there, so that they don't guarantee that you're paying the rent up until the end of that time period, regardless of when you put the termination in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think what I would try and really get away from, and it's at the beginning, it's easy because you think that that's what everyone wants, but stop using the words guaranteed rent, because really it means absolutely jack shit. There was a lot of people guaranteed rent, and as soon as COVID hit, they were throwing the keys back. So, there's nothing in life guaranteed. What I would just try and do is agree a contract that has a term, and as Ryan says, has an expiry, and gives flexibility to end that contract should either party change their mind, it doesn't work out, something comes up. But it needs to represent a fair trade of risk versus reward in terms of a period of time. So like for mine, I think 3 months is fair. So if I decide I don't want a property, I'm quite happy to give them 3 months notice, because that will also mean that I'll be able to probably wash out most of my bookings as well. Because remember, if you take bookings on with especially the channels and you don't honor them, they move them and they bill you for them. So you want to make sure that you've got enough time. And that's why on the 3 months on their side, if they want you out, it gives you that time to rearrange those bookings, maybe move them on, pass them on to somebody else, and make sure that they're looked after so you don't get fined. So just, yeah, I would move away from the terms guaranteed rent. I think that water's been quite well muddied over the last two and a half years. And I don't think it really means anything anymore. Certainly doesn't have the impact that it used to. I think you just want to get into an agreement with a landlord that is fair between both parties.
Okay, yeah, no, that's really helpful. Thank you both. And I think another one was going to. I think so. You mentioned about the insurance already, haven't you? So I think that probably covered my next one actually. So the other one was 3.2. Oh yeah, this 3.2. You see where it's 3.2 and then II brackets, save for any charge to tax which is payable by the owner, all taxes which arise by virtue to use or occupation as property, including tax on income received by the manager. I don't really understand what that means.
The monthly fee on payment date each month and in the manner specified in this. Hold on, and I need to go back to the top part of this question because it obviously.
Oh, sorry.
3.2. Yeah. The manager shall, and then go back down. The manager shall save for any charge to tax which is payable by the owner, all taxes which arise by which. Yeah, that's got nothing to do with you. That's the manager.
Is it not? Okay. I thought we're the manager in this case.
Unless you are classed as the manager in this contract. I'm assuming the manager here is the estate agent.
I think the estate agent is the agent. We're the manager on this.
Okay.
On this particular contract. So
the manager shall save for any charge to tax which is payable by the owner, all taxes which arise by virtue of use of occupation, probably including tax on income received by the manager. I would probably ask them for clarification on that, because that does imply that you're going to pay tax for something that maybe the owner should be paying tax for, which doesn't seem right.
Yeah.
So I would just ask. I would ask them to quantify that.
Okay, thank you. I think the other one was 3.4.
The owner hereby gives full authority to the manager to let out the property as assured short-term tenancies, or to license its occupation to obtain rent or other income, including but not limited to corporate letting and holiday letting to whomever they see fit for it. Yeah, that's fine.
So that should be fine, right? Okay, because just want to double check.
I mean, the fact that it's got but not limited to kind of opens the floodgates for you to do pretty much anything.
Okay, perfect. That's fine. Thank you. Okay, that's just talks about the owner's responsibility. The next one I think was 5.2. I guess this is where it comes to the insurance side of things, like you mentioned earlier.
Consequent loss, damage, and property loss of chance of opportunity or either from breach of duty by the manager or the duty rights. The manager's liability shall be limited to 2 million. The manager does not include any liability for. Yeah, you just need to get your public liability insurance in place, and that should cover all of that.
So, okay, that's fine. Thank you. And then we've already covered the.
Just go back to that termination section. Just go. Disagree. Maybe terminate
this one.
Part by giving 1 month's notice in writing if agreed by all parties prior to the first anniversary of the effective date. Or, okay, so that suggests to me that you can give notice before the 12 months is up, assuming that the contract is the contract anniversary is classed as a 12-month period, because the anniversary could sometimes be classed as the total fixed term or the first fixed term. Okay. Maybe terminate any time by giving notice in writing. Okay, yeah. So I think you just need to clarify. I would just ask in simple terms, what's my notice period within the first 12 months? If I decide that I no longer want to continue, and see what they say, get them to clarify it.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. I think 7.3. Let me just check.
The inventory carried out on and around effective days, inventory counts will be used as a mechanism which to compare and assess any damage. Yeah, that's just basically an inventory that'll be done on day one, and they'll do one when you check out, and then they'll bill you for the difference. Oh,
right. Okay. Yeah, that's fine then. I think that's it pretty much. It was just around obviously the the mortgage insurance side of them, but you've already covered that, and obviously the termination clause as well. But I will ask them for clarification on that as well. But yeah, I think the other stuff are pretty general and standard, aren't they? So yeah, thanks very much for that.
Yeah.
I'll stop sharing.
No problem. The screen. Cool. So thanks. Yeah. So I mean, just wrapping that section up. This is why really you want to always try and use the contract that's on Kajabi or your version of a contract, because then you understand it fully, and you know that. Whereas if you're using loads of different contracts for every single different property, it starts to get a bit complicated, and you've got to dissect them all. Whereas if you just use your contract all the time and get it out there, then then that's that. So we'll come back to Q&As. So I know Ryan's got a few questions around capital allowance which I want to cover as well. But let's get into the main sort of theme of this month, which is deal finding. And I think a few things to remember about deal finding is very much that it is it's a volume game. You know, it is nothing more than a numbers game. And, you know, we discussed at the end of production month, sort of 10x action. Hopefully everyone's read the book. And if you had already read it again. I know I had another read of it, and there's some new things jumped out that, you know, maybe I'd forgotten about or didn't quite pick up last time I read it. But it just shows you what you really need to be doing, and it couldn't apply to 10x activity, sorry, to deal finding any more. And this is what really changed for me. I thought I was doing enough viewings, I thought I was doing enough research, I read the book, I realized I wasn't. I 10x my activity, and obviously things started to change for me. So first and foremost is really use that production month that we spent 4 or 5 weeks digging into to set yourself up for, you know, a lot of action this month. And you will start to see the rewards very quickly, like within weeks, within days, sometimes you'll start seeing the rewards. So the one thing that you are going to have to sort of get your mindset ready for is rejection. And you've got to really overcome that fear of rejection. And, you know, it's easy to be fearful, and it's easy to, you know, think that you might look stupid, or you might get asked a question that you don't really know. And, you know, that you might come across because you've got a new company as inexperienced. But listen, that is part of the game. You've got to get thick-skinned, and you just got to know that it is literally just part of the game. And the more rejection you get, the closer you are to getting your yes. And that's always just a good way to think about it. So, you know, I think there's a great book called Go for No. So the more no's you get, the closer you are to getting your yes. And you know, in this game, depending on where you are and what you're doing, how good you are, but you're probably looking at somewhere between a 15 and a 35% close ratio. So, you know, if you want, in fact, no, it's probably not even that high. It's probably about 5 to 15%. You know, so if you speak to 100 people, if you go on 100 viewings, you're more than likely going to get about 5 deals. And if you're really good and you've got a bit of brand behind you and, you know, everything else, you're probably going to push a few more through the door. So, you know, that's a lot of rejection. And, you know, you're going to have to get used to that rejection and overcoming the fear. So, but know that, you know, and I'm a firm believer in this. And this is why I have no issues speaking to anyone or telling anyone about what we can offer, especially on the sort of rent to rent side of things, is we have a service that I personally think no other tenant can offer. Like no other tenant, you know, we can give them a service that, you know, we pay every single month. We can earn money from day one. HMOs can't, okay? If you, I don't know, if you haven't got any experience with a HMO, this is how it typically plays out. You get your 5 rooms set up, you'll rent room number 1 within possibly the first week. You might get 2 and 3 gone within the second and third week. Room number 4 might go within the first 5 weeks, and by about week 6 to week 8, you might, if you're lucky, get rid of your last room. There's always a room that sticks. Whereas with serviced accommodation, the minute we stick it online, the minute we get bookings. So we've got revenue coming in straight away. So there's never really, or there shouldn't be any issues with paying the rent for the property. We, you know, have to have the properties in hotel style condition because that's what we're advertising online. Again, even with HMOs, we, you know, you can advertise them, but then they fade, and a lot of people don't refurb the rooms after every changeover. You know, we're having to keep on top of these properties, which helps with the maintenance and the long-term value of the property. We're cleaning them weekly, if not twice a week. And that's not just cleaning the communal areas. We're cleaning fridges, we're cleaning microwaves, we're cleaning ovens. You know, we were getting deep cleaned every single week. So, you know, even just those points alone is hugely valuable. I have had some properties back from some of my tenants, and they are a disgrace. You know, an absolute disgrace. And, you know, that is what their alternative is. So, you know, we've got to really hammer home what service we offer. And by doing that, you should ooze confidence in what we're going into. And if an estate agent, if that's the way you're going to go with dismissing it, or even if a landlord is dismissing it, then it's because they don't understand it. So you've got to just, rather than get angry about it, just say, listen, I obviously haven't communicated properly what we're doing. Because when I do communicate it properly to landlords, they bite my hand off because we are their best tenant. And I've got living proof of that. Like, I have landlords that bring me stock. I have landlords that will actively go out and buy properties to give me because they know how easy it is working with us compared to tenants. They know that we're going to take them for a long time. They know how, they don't even go in the properties and do the checks because they don't need to. Worst case scenario, we get a couple that say, could you send us the last cleaning pictures? And we send them the cleaning pictures and they can see what that property looks like. But even that doesn't happen that often, you know? So they don't need to be doing all these checks like they need to do on normal tenants to keep their properties. There are so many benefits of working with us as opposed to working with normal tenants or even estate agents that find normal tenants. And we have to really believe that. And the more you believe in your own product, the greater chance you've got of selling it. If you don't believe in your own product, you're never going to sell it. So that is, you know, step number one in terms of the mindset shift that we're going to need to be able to execute on finding plenty of deals and making sure that we penetrate through the noise, because there'll be a lot of people making the same phone calls, and there's a lot of people walking into the same agencies. There's a lot of people, you know, contacting the same landlords, because there are only a handful of places where these properties are typically online to even start that conversation. So that's where we kind of have to, you know, start out the whole process, and it starts with us. So activity, overcoming fear, and believing in your product. If you put those three together, and you know, in the right way, then you've got a pretty good winning formula, and you should be able to pick up a lot of deals. So that being said, once we've got that in place, I guess it's right, where do we go and find these deals? Now, for those that joined late, unfortunately, I did mention before, there isn't a magic website where they all exist. And it's just a combination of everything. And I think, you know, on a daily basis, you should be either have your alerts set up, so you get an email notifications, or you are actively planning time in to go and find deals, search around the internet, have a good look around. So I say it quite often, but I built my business on Facebook. You know, Facebook, I lived on it. I was in as many groups as possible that were to do with property, especially in my area. You know, so you've got like your buy sell groups, you've got your property for rent type groups, property for sale type groups, you know, your just general stuff for sale type groups. And I used to do it in two ways. So I would do it in a way where I would just go looking and see what posts were kicking around, use the search bar on Facebook, and you know, start just typing in whatever 3-bed house, or, you know, 2-bed flat, or property in Newcastle, whatever it was. And that would bring up a list of recent posts. And then I would go on, you know, like it, drop a comment saying I'm going to send them a direct message. And then I would send them a direct message. The reason you do that, and that is a fundamental part of the step that most people miss out on, is if you're not connected with them on Facebook and you send them a message, then it will go into their spam folder, or the message request folder, as I think it's called on Facebook now, and they won't pick that up, because that's also full of lots of local hookups and lots of really random messages that you don't want, but, you know, they come in the inbox. So it gets lost in the feed, right? You don't even ever check them. I know I don't. You just don't check that inbox. It's just there. It's like a filter. So but by liking and commenting, saying, you know, I've sent you a DM, then they might go, okay, well, so they'll log in, they'll see the notification, and it'll be, you know, Ryan Sandbridge has commented on your post in the whatever group, right? And then within that group, then they'll click on that post and go to the post, and then they'll say, hi, I've sent you a DM. That's when they'll go in, and then they'll actively look for the message. And that's the only time that you might then go into your message request folder and find that message. So that's a really important step that a lot of people miss out on, and that will increase your conversion rate, or it'll definitely increase your response rate back from the person that you have sent the request to. Ryan, have you got a question? I just noticed you got your hand up. Or was that from before? I might have frozen on. So groups is one way to do it. Obviously, you've got Marketplace, which is a Another great way to do it, there are a lot of agencies on Marketplace now, even when you try and filter down to landlord only and not estate agents. But again, it's just working through them, going through the sort of same process, sending messages, asking questions. At the beginning, you literally just want to say, is this still available? Don't go into a whole spiel of how great your company is or what you can do or how many years you can rent guarantee for, or anything like that. Like at this stage, you want them to just think you're a tenant. You don't want to put them off. You know, we've got to get into the conversation flow. And, you know, I just used to, is this still available? For me personally, I never really give much away until I got into the property with them, because I'm a believer that when I'm face to face with someone, because I believe in my service so much, I can pretty much handle any objection and try and at least overcome the mindset and the story that they're telling themselves as to why they can't rent to us. Over a phone or on a message, they can switch off to me quite easily, not respond or put the phone down. So I always try and get on the viewing and try and speak to them face to face where you can, especially at the beginning when you're building your businesses. It's really important, because you'll also, I've said this quite often, don't view the viewing as though you're going to view the property. View the viewing as though you're going to create a relationship. So you know, I talk about it all the time about building your networks and making your networks greater. I've got many examples. You know, case in one of my first ones, I went to discuss one property. Turns out he's got 21 properties. You know, pretty much got most of those properties now in my portfolio, because over the years we've worked on them. And, you know, I've got so many stories where I've been on a viewing and then I tell them what to do. And they're like, oh, by the way, I've got 5 more properties down the road. Do you want to go and have a look at them as well? And, you know, one thing leads to another. If you don't go on the viewings or you try and do everything over the phone, you're never going to get to that opportunity, and you'll unlock more opportunities by doing that. So it is important. At the same time, a lot of people say, well, I don't want to waste my time driving around and going on loads of viewings that come to nothing. You've got to kind of find what works for you. That works for me. And I think only because I feel like I'm quite persuasive in person. And I think when I'm with people, they can feel my energy and they can feel that, you know, I know what I'm talking about and I'm serious and I really want to do the best thing that I can with their property. So, but that might not work for everybody. You might find that you're better on the phone, and you might be able to keep someone on the phone and get them hooked on the phone. You might do Zoom calls. You know, the world has changed slightly since I was out doing a lot of viewings, but I think in general, this is a people's game. And I think you want to try and meet as many people as you possibly can and focus on that where you can. Now, another thing that I used to do on Facebook, which I still do a lot of today, and you know, I get my team to do a lot of it as well, is what I call, you know, dropping the fishing hook. So I would go into a properties Northeast or whatever it might be group, and I would just put in the purple, you'll have seen it on my profile, no doubt, sort of the purple background, and just put something along the lines of, does anybody have a 3-bed house in Gateshead? And then, you know, sort of like comment below, or just, you know, a little down sort of arrow emoji. And then you get loads of people. You'll get estate agents as well, but you will get people like, yeah, I've got this, or I've got this, or they start sending you links. So they're actually then bringing deals to you. And if your profile's set up right, then obviously they'll probably click into your profile. If you've got a nice banner with obviously your company information and what you do, and a nice little profile tagline, you know, I help landlords, you know, do X, Y, Z, or whatever that might look like, then it will strengthen what you're doing as well. Now, some people might then not comment if they do see that, but then the ones that do comment and have seen that, there's a good chance that you're in the door there, and that's stage 1 completed. So you then go into the, you know, comment on the post, like their thing, comment on it, and then go, okay, I'm going to send you a DM. The reason why you do the whole comment stuff on the post is, I'll cover this in the marketing when we get to that month, but in a quick snapshot, Facebook have an algorithm. So like, for example, I've got 5,000 friends, or let's say even in like some of these groups where there's 20, 30,000 people, don't think when you put a post up, 20,000 people see your post. Okay, Facebook at the minute deliver your message to about 2% of the audience. So, you know, if you're in a group with, you know, 10,000 people, you're getting to about 100 to 200 people. That's it. However, they have a 21-point scoring system. You get 1 point for a like, you get 2 points for a comment, you get 3 points for a share. So every time someone likes or comments on your post, you're working towards the 21 points. When you get the 21 points, they'll unlock the post to more people. So they'll see more people. So your post gathers as there's get more comments and more likes. So when you're doing your fishing hook, you want to be commenting and liking on the posts and responding to the people that have responded to you to build the algorithm, and then the post will start getting pushed into the group a bit more people will see it. So that's just a little marketing tip to make sure that you're maximizing your posts as well. So that's I spent a lot of time doing that, like a lot of time, and obviously it paid dividends, and it still does pay dividends. There's plenty of groups that you can go fishing in. There's plenty of groups that you can drop hooks in, and you will get responses. So again, just find them, add yourself to them, and get networking in them. Don't get lost on Facebook, scrolling mindfully, just go in, do your bit, get out, because you know it can sap your time if you do it incorrectly. The next place that I did get quite a bit of success from was Gumtree and OpenRent, pretty much similar type of platforms. So, you know, Gumtree, if you've got people advertising on Gumtree that are genuine landlords, just be careful these days. There's a lot of scammers out there, and there's a lot of agents posing as landlords. But if you can find genuine landlords on Gumtree, they're bloody motivated to rent or sell their properties. Because if they weren't, they'd just give them to an agent, or they'd just put them on OpenRent or something like that. If they're on Gumtree, it means they're motivated. And again, I've picked up many good purchases on Gumtree, and I've also picked up many good rentals on Gumtree as well. And we continue to do that. You can also advertise on Gumtree, and you can put in the properties wanted section, I think it is, where you can just, you know, get yourself a nice creative and just post nice catchy little pictures with, you know, your taglines, you know, properties wanted or whatever that might look like, and just try and call out people to actually come to you as well. You know, give that a test. If it doesn't work for the first month, don't give up, just keep doing it. You know, don't quit. You only fail when you quit. So just keep doing it, and you will get something from it. And then you know, the more adverts you're on, the more you get requests. OpenRent is basically direct to landlord communication. It's the way that landlords advertise on platforms like Rightmove and Zoopla. So if you open conversations with landlords on OpenRent, or even if you're on Rightmove or Zoopla and you see an OpenRent tag next to the property, that means that it is direct to landlord when you type in your details. Again, just simple questions. Is this still available? Or when is this available from? You know, when can I book a viewing? Just very simple, open-ended questions, so they've got to come back to you. And then, again, did a lot of business from OpenRent, still do a lot of business from OpenRent. And, you know, it's a good lead source. I know I advertise all of our stuff on OpenRent. So, you know, we get a lot into our bookings inbox, because obviously it's, you know, renters trying to rent our properties. And, you know, and so it is flooded. So you've got to try and be a bit different. As I said earlier, a lot of people will hit up with the whole corporate thing straight out the gate, which I would just totally avoid. Just, you know, but keep it very simple. Is this still available? You know, when can I view it? Something along those lines. You know, I'm looking to move as soon as possible. When can I view this? And just keep it simple. Get the hook in there. Give them something, you know, to go on, so they at least come back to you and start communicating with you. And you know, and that comes, it does work. Again, it's volume of activity. I think the next couple of options, or the next three options I've got written down is kind of, you know, Rightmove, Zoopla, and estate agents. I think they kind of all fall into one, because most estate agents have the platforms to be able to advertise landlords' properties on Rightmove and Zoopla. So obviously, if landlords are advertising themselves direct, they'd go on OpenRent. And, you know, again, listen, estate agents have got 85–90% of the stock. So you've got to use them. you know, and if you get in with them and you get good relationships built with them, I would try and find a handful of estate agents to work with in your area, 3 to 5, no more. You know, you really don't need probably more than 3, and just find some good people in those agencies and just work with them all the time. Even if you're not taking stuff off them, just keep in communication with them every week, just asking them what's coming in, what's coming on, if they've seen anything new lately, if they've had any new valuation requests, that sort of stuff. And the best person that you can get in with in an estate agency is the valuer. If you can get in with a valuer in an estate agency and they're going out to the property to value it before it goes on the open market, and you give them a little whatever cookie to tell you that it's you know, going live in a couple of days, but it's a great property and it's worth putting a bid in now or getting in to view it first, then you know, it is that they are the best people that you can probably better than the agency owner, I would say, because they are the ones that go out and make that initial contact. They're the ones that go out, sit with the vendor or sit with the landlord, find out what their pain points are, and you know, really understand why they're looking to rent or why they're looking to sell. And if you can get in with them and they tell you that information, then you can then, you know, open up and say, you know, solve those problems. And when you solve problems for people, your world starts to change. And when you start looking at things that way, then that's how you really start to increase your close ratios. You know, not thinking about what you can get out of it. Just if you can solve problems for people, then you'll start to change your world. You know, things will start to come back your way. So that's kind of where we go and where I have always gone to find deals. I've never really had any success from Instagram, I'll be honest. I don't really think that's I don't really think that's a place where you would find deals. However, you know, I'm pretty sure if you found some property developers on Instagram or something like that and maybe started flashing them some messages in their inboxes, you never know, you might find some blocks of flats and things like that. There are obviously other ways, which we'll come on to later in the month, with sort of paid advertising and Facebook and Google ads, you know, but again, this then ties up with the marketing and make sure that your websites are converting well, because it's all well and good driving traffic to websites, but if your website's crap, then, you know, you're just going to blow money. And, you know, so, but for me, I've only really tampered with Facebook ads for acquisitions on and off. I've never really had it as a consistent lead flow because I don't think it offers that. I think it's an expensive way of generating leads when really you can just pick up the phone and ring an estate agent and get a deal for free. So, you know, that is one of the sort of upsides of estate agencies. You know, they've got the lion's share of the stock. In terms of the deals that you want to be looking for, it depends obviously what the strategy is, but you know, on the BRR strategy, then you want to be, you know, I've said it quite often, but I always, when I'm searching through stuff, kind of look for basically anything that looks like my granny's house is kind of how I explain it. So, you know, when I was a kid, it's got like green carpets, horrible brown kitchens, possibly even some wood brown walls, and you know, a yellow smoker's roof, that sort of thing. So, you know, they're the type of properties that do really well to buy, refurbish, refinance, and you can 9 times out of 10 turn them around with just kitchens and bathrooms and some nice modernization in terms of decoration and carpets. So they don't cost a fortune to turn around, and then you can uplift the value quite considerably and get most of your money back out. That is predominantly how I built my portfolio over the last sort of probably the first 2 years, I should say. The landscape has changed slightly for me in that I am doing a lot more property development stuff now, a lot more extensions, a lot more, you know, increasing the floor spaces of properties and increasing the structures somewhat. But that is down to 2 reasons. One is sometimes the sort of granny's option isn't readily available, or they're definitely not at below market value prices like they used to be. Whereas I would say now you're probably having to buy them at market value, and then we're having to extend or having to go into the lofts to create our own value, so we still get our money back out. And I think it's a good strategy, although it's probably adding 3 or 4 months onto the timeline of actually getting the money back out, because obviously an extension takes a lot longer than just putting a new bathroom in. So, you know, the refurbishment has gone from sort of a 2-week process to a 4-month process in most cases. However, we've really got some good deals out of that by searching for that type of stuff, and we have still picked up some great sort of BRR standard type stuff lately. So, you know, it's just a case of, again, just looking, make sure you're in and about. Auctions are popular and very good. What I would say about auctions is a lot of people think that the deals and auctions are on the properties that are absolutely trashed. The problem is that's what everyone thinks, so that's what everyone's bidding on. Whereas people don't really think there's any value in properties that don't need much work. They might actually be the best properties because the bids won't go crazy and you'll not get into a frenzy when you're bidding in auctions. One thing to do with auctions is make sure you've got everything in place, ready to go if you do win it, funding, etc. Make sure you can complete quickly. But the main thing is make sure you've got a price point and you do not go over it. Like, we lost a property yesterday for 300 quid, but it was £300 over what we said we'd go for. You got to stick to your guns and you got to live by them. Now, what I would say is don't have your price point at, say, 77,000, have it at like 77,375, because then it does give you that bit of wiggle room, because most people have their price point at 77,000. So if they're all bailing out, then you can give it a bit more and you might just win it for the sake of a few hundred quid. So, great, auctions are great, and you can find some good stuff in auctions. We're picking up a lot of short leases at the minute, which again is another strategy that you can deploy. And is, you know, where you pick properties up so cheap. Downside is if you haven't got much funds, then you do need to pay for them in cash because you typically can't get them mortgaged. And depending on the councils, it might take you quite a period of time to actually get the lease extended, because in reality, you're not meant to have, you're meant to own it for 2 years before you can actually do anything with the lease extension. However, some councils will break that rule. So we're finding them a really good strategy at the minute. And yeah, and then onto the sort of rent-to-rent stuff. I think, you know, when we're looking for rent-to-rents, in my early days, definitely did far too much refurbishment for the landlords because I was just keen to get deals over the line. I know one of them I spent £8 on, and don't get me wrong, it's been profitable. I made a lot of money out of that property. I've still got it, but again, it's in a state now where really I was just, you know, I think, you know, the saying is, you know, you can put lipstick on a pig, but it's still a pig. You know, it's like that was this type of property, and now I'm probably needing to spend another £5 on it just to keep it in order. So I've now got a decision of, do I give it back or do I spend the money? So if I was starting again, knowing what I know now, I would definitely be trying to just get stuff that literally needed, worst case scenario, a new carpet and a feature wall. I definitely wouldn't be doing kitchen refurbishments and bathroom refurbishments and stuff like that. You know, that £8, for example, I could have probably spun that through an extra 4 or 5 properties, as opposed to putting it into one and waiting for that money to come back out. All right, I got rent-free periods and all that sort of stuff to pay for it, but you know, even just the time it took to do it was about 6 weeks, and you know, it just I think there's better ways to spend your time and your money, knowing what I know now. So really try and find clean properties, try and find properties that have just had full refurbishments, just had, you know, modernized properties, because I also think these type of landlords as well, you know, if you've just like had a brand new decorated property, you might consider somebody that offers our value to take that on instead of a tenant, because, you know, they want it looking after, they want to get it back in that same condition when, you know, the term expires or whenever you give it back, because then they're not having to spend that money again to refurbish the property. So, you know, case in example, I spent £8.5 doing a property up. I had a shitbag tenant in there over COVID. I've had to spend another £8.5 once he left, because he put 2 Great Dane dogs in there and they've absolutely trashed the place, ripped every cupboard off, he ripped the bathroom panels off, scratched every single wall, shit all over the carpet. And then he just did one into thin air. You know, and this is where I get quite worked up when landlords don't appreciate the value of what we offer, because I've also experienced what generally does happen to landlords. I've seen weed farms, I've seen it all. So, you know, what we offer is a valuable service to any landlord that gets it. And that is the thing, is we've got to make sure that you just got to work on changing their mind. And if whatever you've said to them hasn't, go back in with a different angle and try it again. And just don't stop until they really get it. So lease options, another avenue that we can go down. I think the way to search for lease options, or the way I've always done it, is if you go on Rightmove and you search, or Zoopla, and basically any platform that has a rent or a buy. You can even do it on an estate agent's website as well. And if you search for the exact postcode, so like say NE12, and you go the buy, and then you have the rent in one tab, and then you open them up. The good thing is, whenever they are advertising for buying rent, they typically use the same pictures. They don't take different pictures for buying and different pictures for renting. So you can spot if someone's advertising it as both. If someone's advertising as both, that means they've got a problem. And it typically means they need to sell quickly, or they need to get it rented quickly because there's a money issue. So they're good ways to kind of spot lease options. And lease options are great if you can, pull them off. I would say that you're probably not going to find as many lease options as you'll find just straightforward rent-to-rent deals, because most of the time, and they probably take an extra 5 or 6 hours in terms of meeting with the vendor to be able to actually get them over the line, whereas you might be able to do a rent-to-rent deal in 30 minutes. So the time invested for lease options for me is quite considerable compared to rent-to-rent. However, I guess the long-term benefit of a lease option over a rent-to-rent is you will own the property, you can have cash flow out of it straight away, and there'll be equity in that property when you buy it, if the lease is obviously done correctly. So just weigh up where you're spending your time. You've only got a certain amount of time. For me, I would probably just stick to a quick cash flow strategy in the main, spend 70% of your time on that. So typically would be rent-to-rent, and then spend 30% of your time on an asset building strategy, whether that's BRR, lease options, something like that. And you kind of have that bubbling all year in the background. And, so then you're acquiring properties for your portfolio, and you're then obviously moving forward with quick cash flow strategies on the rent-to-rent side of things. But, there's so many ways that, you can get these deals funded. So even if you feel like you haven't got money, there's, we'll touch on it in the next couple of weeks, is how we can actually use investors for deal finding, or once we've found the deals. And, the banks are paying nothing at the minute, and that's really playing into our hands. And, again, it's just a strategy wrapped with volume, wrapped with a good attitude, and you'll find people that have got money. So that's kind of what I would say in terms of a bit of a plan where you can go look for deals. Based on my experience, that's what I would be looking for. Nothing's really changed, from day one to now. I just don't do it myself personally. I've just got an army of people that are out there, but that's where you need to be, because that means my efforts are being magnified. So, the minute you can get people actually deal sourcing for you internally, the better, because it means that you're doubling your efforts, trebling your efforts, quadrupling your efforts. So naturally, you're going to take on more property, because the process is still the same. You need to speak to X number of people, you need to go on X number of viewings, and you need to get X number of contracts out each week. They are the KPIs that I track from my staff. I was looking at them again this morning. How many viewings were you on last week? You've actually gone on less than the last 2 weeks. Why? We investigate it. We're not on target. Why we're not on target? Because we haven't gone on enough viewings. Let's break it all back down. And then we know how many viewings we've got to do this week to catch back up. So it's really important that you track your numbers as well, because it'll also give you a confidence boost of, okay, well, I know if I go on 25 viewings, I get a rent-to-rent deal. I know if I go on 13 BRR style viewings, I get a deal. That deal's worth 25 grand's worth of equity plus 18 grand a year's worth of cash flow. Then you work out, okay, well, if I'm getting 18 grand's worth of cash flow for 13 viewings, that means every time I go on a viewing, it's worth about 1,100 quid to me. The mindset starts to change. So you start to think, well, if I go on 10 viewings, I've just earned myself, 11 grand. And that is the basis of how you can motivate yourself to move forward and make sure that you can get around these monotonous tasks that you have to do, unfortunately, to move yourself forward in this game. So there's loads of little clever things that I'll continue to drop in as we go over. I don't want to overwhelm. I don't want to complicate things, because this game really doesn't need to be complicated. It just needs to be volume of activity and just believing in yourselves, and you will 100% get the results. Just try not all fish in the same groups now on Facebook. I don't want us all fighting against each other. But so you will be seeing each other in March. I don't want any fights. But yeah, so that being said, I was going to do some breakout rooms today, but there's only a few of us. So I think what I'd like to do is just kind of open up there and just take a few shares from people. So if you'd like to just kind of hop off mute and just or just put your hand up and just share kind of what you've taken away from what I've just been through and what you're going to implement straight away. I mean, let's just go just quickly top to bottom, just quick couple of minutes sentence each. So if we go Leanne first, just kind of what you've taken away from that and what you're going to implement.
Hi there, everyone. Right, so I'm very new to this, and it's great because I needed to know exactly where to get into all these deals and where to find them. So it gives me an idea as to what to go and look for now. My question would then be, when you approach the landlords, what exactly do you say to them?
Well, I used to go down the route of, because in the majority you will have contractors staying. If you actually go on to Kajabi and search proven script, there's a video there which is about 8-9 minutes long, and it kind of gives you my script of what I used to say and still say to this day, and even out here, just tweak it. So I go down, that I've got a business that we host contractors when they're in our area doing projects, and they typically stay Monday to Thursday. We then turn the properties around, get them ready for them coming back on a Sunday or Monday, and then we host them again for the following week. They're typically in the area from anywhere from 8 to sometimes 16 months, and we're working with companies up and down the UK to be able to pull them in, and then we just service their accommodation as they're traveling around. So that's kind of what I do. I avoid the words Airbnb, avoid the words booking.com, avoid the words tourists, stag and hen parties, anything like that. If I get asked the question, well, do you have, what do you do on the weekends or whatever, I'll say, well, depending on how the months go, it will depend whether I open the bookings up for any weekend activity, because I sometimes am cautious about ruining a long-term contract for the sake of a quick weekend win. However, sometimes we might need to top the income up in the lower months or the slower periods, and it makes sense for us to open it up. But just rest assured that your property is fully protected no matter who we have staying here through our verification processes. Everyone has an ID collected. We take deposits off everyone. They sign a law-abiding contract that we can take them to court if there's any major damage. So I just kind of trust in this game is the biggest thing, and that's what you've got to echo, is just get that trust echoed across to them to make them feel comfortable. It's the same out here, just twist it slightly. So and it's not a lie, it is what we do, because and even if you've got no experience in this, the majority of your people that stay will be contractors. The vast majority will be contractors. Out here it's the same. It's just we house expats when they move over here and they can't get a Jari contract, so they can't afford the furniture and the setups, because most of the time here you've got to pay 1 or 2 checks for your annual rent. So most people can't afford that. So we put them into nice homes for them and we rent them out to them on a monthly basis. Job done, awesome. Very simple. So yeah, just be honest, that's the main thing.
Is there any, sorry, one more question. Is there any specific area you're supposed to aim for contractors? I mean, I'm in Somerset, so Devon side. Yeah,
I think for me, I find that the outer fringe city properties work the best. Okay. So contractors like to park their vans outside so they can see them. They don't want their tools getting nicked. They want to be able to just get out the van, go straight in, get a shower, kick their feet up, make their tea, and then repeat that process 4 or 5 days a week.
Right.
They don't want to be parking in NCPs, walking 5 miles to find a flat, struggling to get in, noisy nights with the city life and all that sort of stuff. So contractors in the main want, or the companies want, economies of scale, so as many people in the house as possible, and the guys just want to be able to park very close, if not right outside the property.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
Cool. Dan?
How you doing, Ryan? You good?
I'm good, mate. I'm good.
Yeah, can you hear me all right, yeah?
I'm good, mate, yeah. Sunning myself in Dubai, so not too bad.
Yeah, doesn't look too bad either. Yeah, I really like the just the simple tactics online. The thing that I didn't know about the algorithm thing, that you get a like, a share, and a comment, and that helps, you know, you see more people. You mentioned something about the bad tenant that you had. So I don't know whether on conversations I'm going to just put out there, you know, have you had a rogue tenant to the landlord? And 9 times out of 10 they will have done. And obviously kind of play on the fact that you'll avoid all that with us. And one thing I was going to ask, when you're communicating with people, just to clarify, you're saying it's better to like look more corporate and more professional, because I was initially warned away from that on the direct to vendor stuff, because a lot of kind of lower end landlords kind of shy away from contacting or dealing with corporate people.
I think there's a difference between and again we'll cover this a lot on the marketing side of things, but there's a difference between, say, a Nike corporate brand, or a Tiger Woods corporate brand, as there is to somebody trying to be something that they're not corporate brand. Whereas branding should be one of the first things that you do for your business, and you know, brand colors, brand palettes, fonts, everything like that, and it should run in theme with, you know, everything that you do. I mean, if you look at my stuff, and don't get me wrong, my stuff wasn't perfect at the beginning, but what I'm trying to share here is what I've learned over the years, so you guys can cut the corners. If I was starting again, I would have my brand theme set out from day one, and everything would be in the brand colors, everything would be in the brand style, so that it feels professional, but it also has personality. So you don't want to become a corporate that has no face. You want to become a personality. I can't echo how much business I've got by me being the person, the brand. So whilst I've got, you know, Luke Capital Group and, you know, we've got Luke Stays and all this sort of stuff, like it all filters back to me being the face. I'm on the website, I'm on the Instagram, you know, there has to be a person behind the brand, because people in this game buy into people. They don't want to buy into a logo. Okay, they want to buy into a person, but they will also want to see that that person represents professionalism and brand. You know, I probably shoot myself in the foot by the way I dress at times, because I'm very casual. I wear shorts all the time and hoodies, but that's just what I like and I'm comfortable. I have actually had a conversation with my mentor about this recently, and he thinks if I want to go to the next level, I might have to change that. So that's just to give you an idea of how important image is. And that's not just your personal image. That's your image of your website, the image of your social media profiles, the image of your car. And I'm not saying go out and buy Lamborghinis and all that sort of stuff, but like just think about, you know, how you are presenting yourself online. You know, you don't want to be doing fishhook posts and then logging on your profile and seeing you have arguments about politics on Facebook, or seeing that you're, you know, getting just opinionated about something you shouldn't be, or whatever, you know, or that you know, trying every crypto under the sun and it's not working. So they want to know that they're dealing with proper people and a proper brand. And that your brand doesn't have to be old to be a brand, but you've got to get it right. And one thing that I've learned is, if I could wind back time, I would have done my brand palette a lot sooner than I did do it, because I think it would have assisted in more closers and we'd be further ahead of where we are now. But so that's all I would say on that sort of corporate sort of theme?
So so I did a branding right at the beginning, and as I've mentioned to you, my wife's come on board now, and she just said, look, it looks old fashioned, simple as. So she's ran with it, and we've invested some money with a an actual designer, and they've come back with some stuff, and it just looks so more modern. It just looks so much more professional. So we're going to kind of completely rebrand everything. But just going back to when you are commenting, when you are kind of trying to link up with people online, do I do it from my personal page or my business page?
Personal. You get a lot of the groups now don't accept pages in there anyway, so you've got to do it on your personal, and this is why you want your personal page. And again, it drives into that personality, but you can make your personal page, your personal profile look branded and corporate. What I would say about your brand is, imagine your brand was a Nike in the future. Are you happy with your brand colors, your brand standard, and the way it looks? Because if the answer is no, you need to change it now. It's a bit like are my systems and processes intact now to support 1,000 properties? If the answer is no, then I'm never going to get to 1,000 properties. The systems have to be right now to be able to help you get there. You cannot figure that out along the way. It's the same with your branding. If you don't feel your brand could sell multi-million pound whatever, or represent multi-million pound, hundreds of millions, your brand's not right. So change it again, until you feel that that logo stands up, no matter how much money comes into this business and how popular it gets.
Cool.
But don't waste too much time on your logos. Like, this is all about action and, putting it right, you don't want to get too wrapped up in it.
Cool. Nice one.
Cool. Leah, do you want to share just kind of what you've taken away from it and what you're what sort of action points you're gonna engage in?
I guess I think what you said about when you're reaching out to landlord, have more of a conversation at first, because what I've been doing was what you said not to do, like, so just going out there and just saying there and then like what we do and stuff like that. Because I guess for me, I don't want to I suppose waste time for myself, I suppose, or other people, so I wasn't sure whether in terms of having a conversation and then later on the landlord finds out it's not something that they're interested in, would that, I don't know, that's something that I kind of fear, I guess.
They're only not interested in it because they're telling themselves a story that it's not for them because of a certain reason. What we have to do is change that narrative of that story. So our service, coming back to before, our service is the best option for every single landlord that is operating in the United Kingdom, in fact, worldwide. So if they are saying it's not for them or they're not interested, it's because they've got a certain story they're telling themselves as to why it doesn't work for them. Because I know it works better than any other type of tenant, more so than a normal tenant. You will not get a normal tenant that can take 21 properties off you. They can only rent one. You're not going to get a tenant that is going to spend money refurbishing their properties every single year. You're not going to get a tenant that cleans the cooker every single week. It just doesn't happen. Some tenants don't even make the bed for like 2-3 years. It's like, so when you firmly believe what we offer, then I am absolutely gobsmacked if we're in communication with a landlord and they say, we'll decide to go with this tenant. I'm honestly like, listen, I'm really sorry. I've obviously not communicated something properly with you, because there should be no reason why you're choosing them over us. And I go back into the benefits. So I'm never, I guess on that front, that leads me down the path of, I'm never afraid of wasting anybody's time, because I'm not going to waste their time. I'm going to give them the best deal they can possibly get. And if they don't want to take me up on it, then that's their loss. But I won't stop there. I'll always go back and go back. And what I also do as well is, if you do lose a deal, 5 months from now, put a diary in your calendar, in your to-do list, in your Asana, wherever you're doing it, and have contact so-and-so. He chose the tenant over me because of XYZ reason. Because most tenants around the 6-month phase start to get a bit itchy and they start looking elsewhere, and they might have even left already. And if he still says, so you just drop a message saying, hey, I was with you 5 months ago, you decided to choose the tenant, just checking in to see if everything's going all right. If the tenant has, you know, said they might leave, listen, I'm there ready to go. You know, I loved your property last time. I can probably smarten it up once the tenant's left. And they might be like, no, tenant's happy, no problem. Diary call for 10 months. Tenants move 6, 12, and 18 months. Typically, those are the moving points. So you want to just always be building your pipeline up. So no viewing is wasted because you're putting it in your pipeline for a future date. You know, it's like I say to, you know, my sales guys all the time, everybody buys eventually. They might not buy now. They might not buy in 3 months. They might not buy in 2 years. But every single person, if they're in your pipeline and you continue to contact them, add value to them, they will buy eventually. And landlords are no different. Okay, so they might not rent me that property now, but I bet your bottom dollar they will rent me at some point because I'll continue to contact them. And there'll always be a point where you catch them in the right moment. And that's all that sales is. It's catching somebody in the right moment and solving that problem for them. All it takes is them to have experienced a bad tenant, a cannabis farm, a void month, estate agent fees going up. There's so many different reasons, you know, so that's how you start getting volume, is really by, you know, the sales are in follow-up. That's always been the case in any industry that you're in. Sales are in follow-up. They're not in the initial conversation. It typically takes 8 to 12 touch points before someone will agree to do something with you. So, I mean, even just let's just, you know, let's talk about this program right now that you're all sat in. How many of you listen to my podcast? How many of you saw me on Facebook? How many of you got an email from me? How many of you got this before you decided to take action? There was probably quite a lot. There are some people that just go straight away. I'm one of those people. If I know I want it, I go. I don't need all the rest. But the majority of people have an 8 to 12 point touch point. So you might need to speak to a landlord 8 to 12 times before they'll get you over the line. You know, that's probably the averages. The problem is only 27% of people will bother with contact attempt number 2. And that's why so many people end up chasing the first deal and they're just constantly doing loads of activity rather than working their pipeline. The more you work the pipeline, the greater your response will be over time.
No, that's useful. Thank you. I think that's what I find myself to do. Like I close the door quite quickly and early. So like, you know, I'll go back to them, like you say. So that's what I'll take on forward. Try and follow up in there, and you know, follow up again in a few months' time, like you said. So
super. Cool. Good share. Branga.
Hello. Right. So I've just arrived in Leeds just before the meeting, and I was listening to the 10X on the way here. So that was really good. So thank you for that advice. I feel all pumped up now, and I realise how small I am. That's fine.
As long as you haven't been scared off, that's the main thing.
No, it's just the big thing for me, I think, is the rejection, you know, is what you were saying. And I'm pretty sure I'm no different to most people, but just realizing it and accepting that, you know, it's going to happen. That's it. And if I extrapolate this to my line of work, it happens to me all the time. And I know exactly what I'm doing with my job. So I couldn't care less if they don't go, because I know it's their loss, you know. So, and I know I can get to this point in property from all the things that I've seen. So definitely,
just remember with rejection, the easiest way I find dealing with rejection is thinking to myself, if I ring an estate agent and I speak to Jimmy and Jimmy tells me to piss off, am I ever really going to walk by Jimmy in the street and Jimmy's going to go, you're that Ryan Luke kid who I told to piss off? You know, no. So like all you are is you're talking to thin air.
Yeah.
All it is. And if they tell you no, then that's fine, because they're not going to remember your name because they don't care. You know, sometimes you go to stadiums 5-6 times and look at you as though you're alien. You're like, I've been in here every week for the last 5 weeks, you know, but they see so many people, they speak to so many people, you know, so that's the easiest way I deal with it, is just thinking like, they're not even gonna know who I am. Like, so what difference does it make?
Yeah, totally. And I had a question actually. So when you speak to estate agents or even direct or people who are dealing with the properties, one thing that I've come across last week in the few calls that I've done is they've asked whether the property was for me, to which I started by saying, well, no, actually, no, it's not for me because I want to, and I realized as soon as I said this, I lost them altogether, which was fine. It was a learning thing. But I guess I should say it's for me, shouldn't I? Because essentially it's for my company. No?
Correct. Just, yeah, when can I book a viewing?
Yeah.
Just go straight back into the question that you want. Take control of the situation.
Yes.
You always want to be controlling the conversation. So, you know, yeah, when can I book the viewing? You know, when's it available from? Yeah, you know, just move forward and move forward and move forward.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yes, really good meeting. And the other thing that I realized was to avoid the Airbnb and the booking and the tourists, those words, because yeah, they make sense. It makes sense not to mention, because those are scary, aren't they? So
yeah, they're scary to landlords and estate agents, whereas when you're trying to explain what we do as a business to people and they look at you like an alien when you say service accommodation, then you go, I've got an Airbnb business, they're like, oh yeah, I know what you do. But you know, yeah, for landlords and stuff, just avoid it. And contractors, that's just work for me. Contractors, because everyone just assumes contractors just nice working guys, go to work, come home, do a job. You know, they're not going to be causing chaos, even though most of them smoke weed and do all sorts in your properties. But you know, it just seems it's worked for me, and I just use it over and over and over again, same sort of storyline.
yeah. And just one last question whilst I'm talking. So, you know, you were saying earlier, you were saying that you look for the edges of the city, aiming at contractors. So, for instance, I know that this is a world in itself, it's fine, I understand that. But basically, the question is, how do I look for the best location? I know this is the $1 million question, but I was thinking, okay, I'm going to focus on Birmingham because that's where I am. So I was looking at the center of Birmingham,
Yeah,
which obviously doesn't apply for contractors, does it?
Well, it might. If the contractors are working in the city, it might. So it's not a total rule of thumb. But what I would do is go on Google Maps, type in Birmingham city centre or whatever location you want to do, Leeds city centre. And then just zoom out and then, sorry, type in hotels in Birmingham city centre.
Right, okay.
Zoom out and just have a look where the hotels are around the fringes of the city. Then what I do is jump on Airbnb and type in whatever the village is or whatever the location is, try and find the postcode or whatever, or even just type in Birmingham and then zoom in where you need to zoom in and just see how many Airbnbs are in that area. If there's a hotel in an area, it works.
Okay, so the fact that I can't find properties in that area does that mean it's not a positive thing? So in other words, could I interpret it as, oh, there's no property, so this must be really good because there's no properties available?
Correct. If there's a travel inn, a travel lodge, easy hotel, you know, they spend so much money doing research before they will move furniture in or build a building. Like you're talking millions that they'll do on finding the right plots. They hire people to actually specialize in doing that and finding them the right locations based on traffic flows and this and that and the other. So my rule of thumb is if there is a hotel nearby, you should be able to make an SA unit work.
Okay, all right, I'll use that. That's great. Thank you for your help.
Cool. Okay. I'm going to come to Adrian because I feel like I always leave him till the last. If he's Adrian, you with us? Or have you frozen? Oh, no, you're there.
Oh, there. Hello.
Are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
I'm here.
Yeah.
You're back. How are you? Really, when it comes to looking for rent, just keep it simple. And try, as I suppose, I think what you're saying is try and get face to face with the landlord in as little words as possible, so that and I feel yourself, when you're face to face, it's far easier to have a relationship with someone, far easier to sort of see what they want, what they don't want, and what objections might be. So that for me is a sort of, it's very obvious when you hear it, but if you don't hear it, it's not obvious, that type of thing. And then when you do get there, and you are right, you are, you know, nobody cleans the property the way an SA operator works. Even the bad ones keep it fairly well, or the not so good ones. So that is an easier sell once you get in front of somebody as well, I think, rather than sort of over the phone, for me anyways. And I like the one there where you mentioned to ring them 6 months or a year later or 10 months later.
Yeah.
Because if they have hassle, if they have trouble and they've spoken to you before, you're not a total stranger as such. You might remember you, but oh yeah, I remember you, yeah. All right, oh geez, I had a problem with that, or that tenant has left again and left something not done or something, whatever. And they might just be lucky enough, sure, I'll give you a go and see, I'll give you one property, or I'm sick of this bloody thing, I'll give it to you. And that for me is the easy part. And then the other part then is just sort of getting that contact with the person that you can achieve all those things with.
Yeah, which just comes from volume of activity.
They're easier once you get to know them, I suppose. If you were lucky enough to get 1 or 2 units through an agent, and he knows what you're at and how you're doing it, and you build up a relationship, again, it's face-to-face relationship, you have an open book after that, I think. So I think you also mentioned there it's 2 or 3 agents is all you want. If you have them in the right areas, you have most of your deals sorted out, and no big work or no big hassle. But there is work and hassle, but it's not as big a hassle as talk to 10 strangers every week.
Yeah. So I think also just as a another kind of objection handling question, I do quite like to throw questions back at a question. So, you know, if you say, oh, well, you know, I just don't want to do it. It doesn't interest me, or I don't like the idea of it. You know, I might say, well, you know, could you just explain why you don't like the idea of it? Oh, well, you know, I've seen an article about, you know, an Airbnb property, blah, blah, blah. I just kind of, one of the best questions you can ever ask any landlord or estate agent is, have you ever checked into a hotel and the room has been trashed? And they're like, well, no. And you can actually see them thinking in their head, well, that makes total perfect sense. And then I just say, that is my business model. I run hotels, like I run mini hotels. I have to make sure that what we are delivering is the same as what we're presenting online, or I don't have a business. So I can't let a guest trash your property and then just leave it. It has to be maintained. It has to be fixed. And that's, you know, the same as a hotel. And that's why you've never walked into a hotel that's been trashed, because it doesn't happen. So, you know, again, just small little wins that you can put in place. So, but yeah, thanks for sharing that, Adrian. Some good learnings there. I'm glad everyone's picking up on this stuff. Louise.
Hello. Yeah, so I've definitely stopped doing any sourcing for a while. I just put that all on hold as I was focusing on learning how to run a serviced accommodation business. And I've done that probably the last couple of months, probably, because I've now got 4 units up and running. So got them, and I've got a website, and I've just been focusing on that completely, learning how to do it, getting all the systems in place. But yeah, I'm about ready now to start sourcing again. So that's my plan over the next couple of months, to try and get some more. And we've got that development ongoing as well. And but I would like to get another couple of rent to rents, I think. But I'm also looking for another BRR maybe as well. So I'm always a bit torn trying to do both, but I think I need to just maybe just do viewings with the agents and just look at what's around.
Yeah, I mean, and I did this as well, but I always say, like, never ever stop deal sourcing, because deal sourcing is a momentum thing. And when you get that momentum, I call it the momentum train. When you're on that momentum train, never jump off it, you know, and, you know, that's the same. I talk about this with education quite a lot as well. You know, I see it all the time where people work with mentors and they're doing really well, and then they think they've cracked it, so they jump off the education train, and then they end up going backwards because they think they've cracked it, and that's the worst thing you could ever think. You know, one of the things I've learned is always stay on that train. It doesn't necessarily have to be the same mentor, you know, it doesn't necessarily have to be the same type of deal that you're going for, but if there's momentum there, keep fueling that momentum. And what I would say is, and again, it's easy to say when you've got money and you've got, you know, things built, blah, blah, blah.
I did run out of money as well for furniture and things.
Again, it comes down to, you know, just think about, had you had someone else figure out the systems and processes in your business, had you had someone else deal with all the guests, and you'd gone and found another 4, 6, 8, 10 units in that last couple of months, imagine the cash flow that you'd have in from that right now versus just 4. There's always that opportunity cost. And this is why I say all the time, we have to get to working on the business, not in the business, in the quickest time possible.
Yeah, that's definitely not what I'm doing at the moment.
Yeah, you're gonna need people to be able to do that. You can't do that by yourself. So you've
got that internal battle of not enough money coming in, especially with the off season.
Good stuff for themselves. Because with rent, especially, let's think about this logically, right? Rent to rent is, you know, the minute we get a deal, we get paid, because with Airbnb and stuff, it comes in straight away, the revenue. We get paid within the first couple of weeks if you get the right units.
I didn't. Took me a while. Took me about 6 weeks to set it up, not 2 days like it was with you.
You know, so we've got to set them up quick and you've got to get them paying quick. Or you've got to put your costs back by doing better agreements with setup phases and things like that. But the what we then want to do is, each unit on a rent to rent basis should be worth £6,000 minimum per year profit. So if you're then exchanging that for, you know, an employee, basically you've got to find 2 units to pay for every employee that you bring in, roughly. Now, if you're focusing purely on acquisitions and nothing else, I can guarantee you can find 2 units a week. So by the time you've got, you know, your staff implemented, you should be then out finding the deals to pay for your staff, and then your staff save you so much time and they do so much for you. So just try and always think about that. And one thing I did too much of was too much by myself. I tried to conquer the world by myself, and it just held me back and I blew up. So try not to make that same mistake and get the right help at the right time, but never get off the momentum train with deal sourcing. I
definitely need to put time aside to do the deal sourcing and get somebody in to do what I'm doing. I've taken on a VA this week, actually, who I'm hoping will manage a lot of the guest messages and all that kind of stuff. The you know, the Airbnb, the booking.com, that, because on one of my units you have to book in your car park, so you have to get the reg from the guest and then you have to send the reg to, so, you know, all just things like that just general day-to-day stuff that you have to do.
Could you not create a Google form which then zaps the reg straight via email to the person that you need to send?
Not very good at Zapier. I've done one Zap so far. I'm on my first one.
You could create a Google form and you could send that to the guest and say, to book your car in, you need to fill this in. Once they fill that form in, you could set up a Zap, which then creates an email, which then populates the information by pulling it from the Google form and sends it to wherever you need. I was hoping
there'd be a way of doing it like that, but I couldn't work out. So also a guest could fill in the Google.
You just send the guest the Google form link as part of their check-in instructions and say, if you want your car booking in, you need to do X, Y, and Z. And then from that Google form, it can then create an email, which then sends to whoever it needs to go to.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I'll try and do that. And I've also got somebody who is doing the cleaning, but she's sort of overqualified to clean. She's very, very good. And I was wondering about getting her on board to maybe manage things as well as cleaning. Whether there was a way of getting her to do more than like sort of doing cleaning and admin sort of thing, maybe as well, sort of, and move on to a point where she's doing less cleaning and more admin and
organising the cleaning. You could make her like, you could almost make a head housekeeper if you wanted to, and then she deals with all like arranging all the cleans for all the properties and, you know, make sure that all the maintenance is arranged and things like that. I would be careful about making a single person do a bit of everything, because it never works. You've got to keep people in their what I call zone of genius.
Yeah.
So if you want them to do something to do with cleaning, you could definitely make them a head cleaner and make them responsible for linen and maintenance and cleaning.
Yeah.
But don't then say, oh, and I need you to respond to guests, and I need you to go and view some properties, and I need you to do this, because it just won't happen. And what will happen is they'll gravitate to the job that they prefer, and they'll not do the other roles. So I've learned that lesson a million times, and everyone now has a role in their business. They're in their lane, and that's it, and that's all they do. And it probably means I've got more staff than I probably should have, but I think I'm more efficient because each person is just on that role, and I think I get my money back through the efficiency.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping the VA will be able to do a lot of the messages stuff.
Yeah,
and she can do more of the on the ground stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. No, VAs are good. I think you always start with VAs, and then as you scale, you bring them internal, and then you give them a contract for employment. You know, so you grow as you grow with the business. Use VAs, use consultants, use you know, people on hourly rates to start off with. You don't need to be employing people full time on 50 hours a week or whatever. You know, you can use a lot of consultants to start building your businesses and keep the costs down. Just make sure you track them. So, cool. Anything else? Or
No.
Pretty happy with that. Cool.
Just that. Were you going to send me the spreadsheets?
Yeah, I've sent you.
Oh, have you? I didn't know what that was.
It should be on your email.
Right.
Laith, are you with us, or are you driving? I think he was driving.
Yeah, I was. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, right, yeah, absolutely. We had a power cut this morning, so we had to take the kids to school and come back to no internet and no Wi-Fi and no power. So I'm hopping from Costa to Costa, I believe. I'm in IKEA, so they've got free Wi-Fi and power. So that's where I am. So excuse the background noise. But my question line is just a simple one about direct bookings. And thanks for that last, but it really did help, because a bit like everyone else, Brankalia, Adrian, you know, sourcing the deals this year, I personally found, and I don't know about the rest of you, has been more difficult, because the agents seem to be saying that the stock levels are down and that they would prefer to deal with them themselves. So I've got two questions. One is, what are we offering the agents in terms of an incentive to introduce us to the landlords? And the second one was about direct bookings. I've got several bookings now from Airbnb Verbal and Booking.com. I'm capturing all the data, so I've got their names, email addresses, and phone numbers. And we're also asking for physical addresses and even birthdays, so we can send you know, cards and incentives on those dates. And I've got the website, but what are you using to capture banking details on the website specifically for direct bookings?
Yeah.
So, you know, you're giving them a 15% off becoming direct, or, you know, 25% off for a month booking direct. But how are you doing that? What software are you using? You know, Google Pay or PayPal or whatever? Yeah.
Okay. So, couple of, I'll just pop you on mute, Laith, because obviously a bit of background noise. But first, with regards to stock, remember that there's no business activity between probably the second week in December and the second week in January. No listings go on websites, estate agents hardly work, everyone's on Christmas parties, no one really gives a shit. So there's always going to be a shortage of stock in January, because there's always that lag time until they catch back up and people start relisting houses, putting them up for rent, etc. So, you know, that's always the case. In terms of the direct bookings, I use Uplisting connected to Stripe. We create a booking on Uplisting, and then we send they've got a payment link page which sends. It looks like a website. It's all safe and secure, and the guest just puts in their details and it takes it, and then Stripe's behind the scenes to be able to collect the money. I know some people think Uplisting's expensive, but when you actually dig into the functionality of what it does for your business, and as you scale your business, it is actually very cost effective, and it provides you with a lot of tools that I think a lot of platforms don't do. So that was that. In terms of incentives to estate agents, again, this comes back to kind of getting in with a core sort of 3 or 4 and finding, I think I said to Leah the other day in the chat, just, you know, find out what they want. Ask the question, just what do you want out of this? You know, I had a meeting with a guy here on yesterday, and he's been not only finding us properties, but he's also been finding us expats to rent them. So, you know, he's like my best mate at the minute. So I'm just like, you know, he's like, what are you going to give me? I'm like, well, what do you want? You know, he's like, well, you know, 500 dirhams, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, right, fine, no bother. Do you know what I mean? Like, so it's on their terms. If he'd said something stupid, I'd have been like, well, I'm not going to give you that. It doesn't make sense. But, you know, 9 times out of 10, they'll tell you honestly what's the minimum acceptance for them, you know? And if they do a good deal or a good job for you, don't try and chip them. Don't try and like get 50 quid off or whatever. Just pay it. If it's worthwhile, pay it. And then they'll bring you more, you know? So,
100%. Yeah, I've got 2 agents that we actually get on really, really well with. One of them just been off for Christmas and got married. I've sent him a card. I sent him a book that I thought would be useful. And we're chatting and we're very, very close. And, you know, back in October, November, he went around and showed me 6 or 7 properties. And with the other one, less friendly, but also very open to ideas. But even those 2 have said, look, you know, the boss has said we need to deal direct with landlords, but let's keep in touch because I really like what you do. I've seen the videos. I've seen the feedback. It seems like you're doing a great job, and I'd love to introduce you to other landlords, which is great. But we just need more. You know, I need a lot more in the pipeline because, like you said, if it's 5%, then I need to go and see 100 to get the 5. And,
yeah,
that's
I know you say stock is short, but I bet you I could go on Rightmove now and find 100,000 properties to rent.
I bet you could.
You know,
having those conversations.
And you're probably only after.
Yeah, not interested.
Yeah, you're probably only after 3 or 4 of them. So, you know,
yeah.
the percentage of stock available is quite low. It's again just powering through, putting in the activity, putting in the volume. And sometimes you got to put more volume in. Sometimes you don't.
100%.
You know, but overall it averages out over the course of the year, and you get what you want.